stories for bedtime
and car time and playtime.
And anytime you want to hear how much Jesus loves you in all this world.
Even little birds.
Hi, I'm Pastor Sarah at St. Paul Lutheran Church in Davenport, Iowa. Welcome to this podcast where we tell stories told just for kids and for kids at heart. Every week, we tell a story about Jesus from the Bible. And as you know, for these stories on this podcast, we need to bring our imaginations. We are going to imagine that there was a little bird in all of those Bible stories, a little bird who was friends with Jesus, a little bird who saw all the things that Jesus did and heard all the things that Jesus said. Last week, Little Bird and Jesus went fishing. Not only did they catch a bunch of fish, but they also met some great new fishermen friends. These friends decided to leave behind their boats and their nets to follow Jesus, to be his disciples, to be a part of Jesus' flock. This week, Jesus and his friends will be part of another miracle. So, turn on those listening ears for episode 9.
Little Bird and Jesus have lunch with a crowd.
After that fishing trip on the lake, Jesus and his friends, both human and bird, set out on the road. They walked from town to town, healing people and sharing about God's dream of love and a full life for all people. It was Little Bird's favorite thing to perch on the branch of a tree as people gathered around Jesus. She loved listening to his stories and hearing about God's love. She had a front row seat to the miraculous healings, and she'd hear Jesus' word of kindness and compassion. Their days were very busy and very full, but sometimes even Jesus would get tired. And so Little Bird, Jesus, and his friends would escape the crowds and have a sort of quiet time. The friends would talk and rest and nap, and Jesus would make his way to a quiet place alone to pray. We all need a break sometimes, just to be alone. Well, one day, Jesus was in a quiet place, up on the side of a mountain, praying. But somehow, people figured out where he was. More and more people gathered together looking for Jesus. Simon Peter, one of the fishermen, saw Little Bird and told her, "Little Bird, all these people are looking for Jesus. Can you find him? Will you go and tell him there's a crowd waiting for him?" So Little Bird flew to the place in the trees where Jesus was praying. She hated to interrupt him, but she knew he'd want to see those people. She quietly started to sing. And when she did, Jesus opened his eyes and smiled at her. "Sounds like my rest time is over, Little Bird," he said. "It's okay. This time of quiet has re-energized me. Let's go see those people." So Little Bird followed Jesus as he went to talk with the crowd. By that time, there were over 5,000 people who gathered, a whole lot of people. They were so excited to see Jesus, and so they spent the rest of the day out in the sun, listening to him teaching. Eventually, near the end of the day, Philip, one of Jesus' friends, came and whispered in Jesus' ear, "Jesus, it's getting late. I am hearing a lot of growling tummies. The people are hungry. Maybe you should send them all home to eat." This was before fast food restaurants or Lunchables. Most people didn't carry food with them, and there wasn't an easy way to get it. Plus, a lot of the people there didn't have much money to buy food anyway. Jesus looked shocked at Philip's idea. Why send them home? Just give them something to eat. Now it was Philip's turn to be shocked. There are 5,000 people here. There is no way we have enough money to buy food for all of them. Impossible. But as they were talking, Little Bird noticed something. There was a young boy not far from Jesus. The boy was listening into their conversation. He looked out at the big crowd, and then he gazed down inside the basket he had with him. He had a puzzled look on his face, like he was trying to figure out some complicated math problem. But then he looked at Jesus, and his eyes got big and hopeful. The boy went up to Andrew, one of the fishermen who became a disciple. At first, Andrew didn't notice him. He was too interested in Jesus and Philip and their conversation. And for some grown-ups, it's easy to overlook a kid. The young boy again tried to get his attention, pulling on Andrew's robe. Still, he didn't notice. Finally, Little Bird flew over to Andrew, landed on his shoulder, and tweeted as loud as she could to get his attention. At last, with Little Bird's help, Andrew noticed the young boy, and he leaned down to hear what he wanted. The young boy opened up his basket and showed it to Andrew. "I have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. I want to share them," he said. "I know there are a lot of hungry people, and it's not enough, but it's something. Maybe this can help." Andrew brought the boy and his basket to Jesus. Philip peered into the boy's basket and started to laugh. "That's not enough for all of these people." But Jesus didn't seem to think so. He said to his disciples, "Have the people sit down." And soon all those 5,000 people were sitting on the grass of the field where they had gathered. The boy gave Jesus his basket of food, and Jesus received it with the biggest smile. Jesus bent down and whispered in the boy's ear, "In just a little bit, something amazing will happen. And I couldn't do it without your trust in me or your willingness to share. Thank you." Then Jesus took the loaves of bread and the fish, and he blessed them, thanking God for the gift of the food. After this, he told his friends to give the bread and the fish to all the people who were gathered there. At first, they gave the tiniest of bites to people, little tiny portions. They tried to make sure that as many people could eat as possible. But they soon noticed that more and more bread and more fish just appeared. The food never ran out. So they kept sharing it, big bites and huge portions, and the baskets were never empty. Soon every one of those 5,000 men, women, and children had eaten their fill of delicious bread and yummy fish. There was more than enough for every single person. After everyone had enough to fill their bellies, Jesus' friends collected all the leftovers, and there were still 12 baskets full. Everyone was amazed and talked about the wonder of Jesus. They spoke of how he must have come from God. The young boy had returned to his family, and as they were eating, he noticed Little Bird. He pulled a little morsel of bread from their miraculous loaf, and the boy walked over to Little Bird. He put that little morsel of bread on the palm of his hand, and he gently reached toward her and whispered,
Hi, tiny sparrow. Here, eat this. There's more than enough bread for these people, and also for a little bird like you.
Little Bird pecked at that delicious bread, grateful to be included in the feast. She was amazed by the big heart of this little boy. And like all the others there that day, she was in absolute awe of Jesus, who fed hungry people, making sure that everyone had enough. Wow, wasn't that amazing? Can you imagine what it would be like to see 5 loaves of bread become 10, and then 20, and then 100, and then more? What do you think it would have been like on that day? Maybe you can draw a picture of it. What do you think Jesus said when he blessed the food and gave thanks for it? What do you say when you pray before you eat, blessing your food and giving thanks for it? I love this story because it reminds us how much Jesus cares about feeding hungry people. Maybe this week you and your family can work together to share some food with people in your community. You could go to the grocery store together and pick out some bread and canned tuna to bring to the food pantry. Or maybe you can bake some bread or cookies or a dinner for someone you know who is having a hard time. The story we heard today teaches us that our sharing plus Jesus equals a whole lot of goodness. We can be like that little boy and share what we have, and then trust that Jesus will multiply that love in big ways. And that's the end of this episode of Little Bird and Jesus.
Now flap your little wings. Sing a little song.
And remember that to Jesus,
You will always belong.
Thanks for listening to Little Bird and Jesus, a podcast of St. Paul Lutheran Church in Davenport, Iowa. For more information on St. Paul, visit us at stpaulqc.org. Come visit us again next week as Little Bird continues her journey.